Yes, Geordies, welcome back to another episode. And how is everyone? International break tonight, England play tonight, and all I'm praying for as a Newcastle United fan, selfishly, is no injuries. This is why I was selfishly actually quite pleased that Malik Chow didn't get called up to Germany and Sven Botman didn't get called up to the Netherlands, because I just don't want any injuries and Newcastle can't afford to have any injuries. But you know what? Indy went down quite well yesterday, and I've told her about all the comments. She's absolutely loving it and she's now got a spring in her step, but you couldn't really see her face in the video. So I'm going to treat you a little bit, and here's a full picture of her face. Isn't she just a glorious, good-looking dog? Do you know how they say dogs take after the owners? Nah, I'm only kidding. But look at that, man. She's lush. Actually, this could actually benefit somebody out there if anybody does watch this. But Indy's always had an ear infection since she was born, like throughout her little childhood until her age now. She's consistently had an ear infection. I've consistently taken her to the vet every single time. They give her some medicine, some drops to put in her ear. And I was thinking to myself, surely something's triggering this. There's got to be something that is triggering this, because she can't have this many ear infections. I changed up her food, and what I decided to do was, do you know how dog food has grains in it? I started buying dog food without any grains, and little behold, she's a lot better. So if anybody is watching this, that could actually benefit someone. So sometimes you might just need to change up our food. She could be allergic to grains, I don't know. But if she was, surely that's something the vets would have found out. I don't know. I'm not a vet myself, but yeah, she's a lot better now. And yeah, that's her. I really don't want to make this a dog channel, so that's enough dog loving for now. But next time I will show you his Poppy. But we do have an interesting video up today, and we are speaking Newcastle United, because I want to look at our squad and do actually need anything in January. And then I want to look at what Yoane Wissa's had to say, whether he's going to AFCON or staying at Newcastle United, and why he's probably considering the decision. And then we've also been linked to Real Madrid's Endrick. So as always, guys, I'm going to provide a scout report. We're going to look at why he's fell out of favour Real Madrid, the benefits of having Endrick on loan for both Newcastle United and Real Madrid, and then we're going to look at his style of play, but also backing it up with statistics. So as always, guys, if you enjoyed this episode, make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, because it helps us get onto that algorithm, and we're not very close, but on the road to getting 10k subscribers. So let's start by looking at our squad, because this is how our squad looks, what it looks like on paper. We need a fullback, in my opinion, because we've got Tino, Lewis Hall, Alex Murphy, who doesn't even look like he's going to get an opportunity, because with Lewis Hall being injured and Tino being injured, if he was ever going to get an opportunity, the opportunity would have come now. We've got Emil Kraft and Harrison Ashby, but obviously Eddie Howe likes Dan Burn at left back, so he has been playing at left back. Malik Chow on the odd occasion can also play right back, so we do have those multi-phase defenders. Emil Kraft can also play at centre back, so we do have options, but I still think we need a fullback, especially somebody that can play either side. We've got Tino as predominantly a right back who can also play left back, so if we can bring in a predominantly left back who can also play right back, it would be absolutely ideal. But from the outside looking in, a fullback is very unlikely this January, maybe next summer. Actually, I think we would need to go next summer for a fullback, because Emil Kraft will be another year older. Harrison Ashby, in my opinion, is not Champions League level, so next summer we do need to bring in a fullback. So I'm going to be doing plenty of scout reports on fullbacks that we could bring in. So let's look at the centre backs. Now we've got 5 centre backs: Malik Chow, Fabian Shaw, 2 right centre backs, Dan Burn, Sven Botman, 2 left centre backs. My preferred choice is Malik Chow and Sven Botman, because I just think they elevate us to another level. But Dan Burn and Fabian Shaw, good options to have off the bench or as rotation options, or if somebody gets injured. Now, Dan Burn, Fabian Shaw, and Jamal Lascelles are old now. They're going to have to be replaced over the next couple of years. For this season, it's cool. They've proven they can all 4 or 5 can play at the highest level. Now, interestingly, Jamal Lascelles' contract, as well as Fabian Shaw's contract, ends next summer. Dan Burn is a summer after. So depending on how Fabian Shaw performs this season, we might actually be in the market for another centre-back next summer. So I want to ask you guys that question. Would you extend Fabian Shaw's contract for another year, or would you go younger and develop another centre-back under Malik Chow and Sven Botman? It's an interesting debate. For me, it depends on our finances. And I'll tell you why, because we also need a midfielder, in my opinion. I would love nothing more than a creative midfielder. I think we've dropped the ball with Bilal El Khanous. I think he would have been a magician under Eddie Howe. He would have been excellent. And I'm telling you something, someone like Yoane Wissa would thrive with a player like Bilal El Khanous. But even putting a creative midfielder to a side, we still need another midfielder, in my opinion. Just another multi-phased midfielder, somebody like Bruno Joelinton or Sandro Tonali, who are all strong, who are going nowhere, by the way. Joe Willock, I'll give or take with Joe Willock. I think we should be looking to sell him because his contract's about to run out. We need to maximise his value. So in my opinion, I would have sold him last summer and tried to reinvest that money. But look, it is what it is. We're in this predicament. We're in this situation now. We need to look to offload him next summer if he's not going to renew his contract, because we need to maximise his profit value. Jacob Ramsey, it's hard to say on Jacob Ramsey because he's only started one game and he's only came on as a substitute in another game. So he's yet to perform or show us what he can do. So I do think Jacob Ramsey just needs to get healthy, get fit, have a run of minutes, and then we'll judge him from there. Lewis Miley, we all know he's a boy coming through. I would like Lewis Miley to get more minutes in the Premier League so he can really develop and start to grow as a player. And I think towards the end of the season, once Champions League really gets up and running and when the Christmas fixtures come around, we will see a lot more minutes for Lewis Miley. And then you move on to our wingers. We've only got 4 wingers. Anthony Gordon, Harvey Barnes, who like to play on the left, Anthony Elanga and Jacob Murphy, who like to play on the right. Harvey Barnes is an interesting one because I feel like if we're going to sell anybody to maximize profit and reinvest that money, it's probably Harvey Barnes. Contract runs out in 2028. So considering that factor, if you ever are going to sell him, now is the time to do it, because the longer his contract goes on without getting renewed, his price is just going to devalue. Then we've got Jacob Murphy, who's turning 31 very soon. He's not getting any younger. So maybe next summer we might also need a winger. So looking at that, we need a fullback, we need a centre back, we need a midfielder, and we need a winger. I do actually think next summer might be quite interesting. So moving on to our forwards. Now, I've been told off for calling him Nick Walter Messi, so I'm going to have to go back to his original name. Sorry to be all serious. For forwards, we've got Nick Voltemurder, who has had an excellent start to life on Tyneside, Yoane Wissa, who's yet to kick a football for us, and William Masula, who's shown flashes, but still growing as a footballer. Now, considering Yoane Wissa could be, and I say could be, going off to AFCON, a loan option for a striker might not be the worst decision in the world come this January. Now, that takes us nicely on my next little segue, and that is Yoane Wissa, because we all know his injury got prolonged for another couple of weeks. But Keith Downey, I haven't watched a YouTube video. I normally watch him because I enjoy him. He speaks a lot of sense, but I haven't watched it, so I'm just going off what's written there. And apparently, Yoane Wissa has come out and said his priority right now is getting back playing for NUFC rather than the AFCON, as he wants to repay the faith the club has shown in him this summer. Truthfully, that could mean anything. It could just mean he wants to get back playing for Newcastle before he goes off to AFCON, so at least he plays a couple of games before he goes to AFCON. But it could also mean that he's thinking about Newcastle United instead of AFCON. Now, you know my stance on players with international football. I think it's down to the player. And in truth be told, sometimes in life, some things are best left unsaid. Now, if Yoane Wissa was approaching me and I'm director of football or even the manager, Eddie Howe, I'm just sitting there just listening to what he's got to say, trying to think about why he's prioritising Newcastle United. And if that's because he wants to play Champions League football, because this decision ultimately could come down to whether he wants to play Champions League football or go off to AFCON. Because think about it. If he goes to AFCON, it means he might not actually play in the Champions League. What if we don't re-qualify for Champions League next season? Then he's missed that opportunity to play in Champions League football. So if he doesn't go to the AFCON, he can play in the remainder of the group games. If he goes to AFCON, he's potentially risking us not qualifying for the later stages or re-qualifying for Champions League next summer. So what I would be saying in this situation is, look, geezer, it's your choice. I wouldn't put any pressure on him staying. I wouldn't put any pressure on him going. I would just say, ultimately, it's your choice. If you want to go to AFCON, you go with my best wishes. If you want to stay at Newcastle United, that obviously benefits me as a manager and us as a club. That's pretty much what I would be saying to him. I would just let him make the decision. So if Yoane Wissa does decide to go to AFCON, we need a striker. We cannot go into this set of fixtures with this Champions League. Don't forget, it's an extra 2 Champions League games from when we were playing Champions League last time. So with this set of fixtures, and I remember speaking to some Aston Villa fans, and they were saying what killed them mainly in the Premier League when they were in the Champions League is those 2 extra games after Christmas. Now, Yoane Wissa would miss those games. So we've got to think of a way of bringing in a striker. And if you can bring somebody in on loan without putting any financial strains on the club, Endrick. would actually be a smart choice in my opinion. So reports are coming out of Spain that Newcastle are encouraged in move for La Liga Wonderkid. So the article goes on to say that Newcastle United are eyeing a January move for Real Madrid striker, and Real Madrid have now changed their stance on Endrick. So why they changed their stance? Probably because they got Kylian Mbappe, and now Gonzalo Garcia is also banging in the goals for Real Madrid. I've got a funny story about Gonzalo Garcia because you all know I'm kind of know people in the Dutch clubs. Now, what I do know is Gonzalo Garcia was very, very, very close to joining PSV before the Club World Cup. It was around for 8 million. I think it was going up to 10 with add-ons. So he was going to join them, and then he stopped banging in the goals at the Club World Cup, and Real Madrid turned around and said, we want an extra 20 million. PSV were like, we can't afford that. So it just goes to show, like, sliding doors moments is if he had joined PSV before the Club World Cup, he would be a PSV player, and what his success at Real Madrid would never have happened. Or even if Real Madrid didn't qualify for the Club World Cup, he would be a PSV player, because the only reason Real Madrid wanted to keep him because he stopped banging in the goals at the Club World Cup. So his success has actually seen Endrick have no minutes this season. So what are the benefits of him coming to Newcastle United from a Real Madrid point of view and a Newcastle United point of view? So from a Real Madrid point of view, allowing him to get more minutes than he's currently getting with Champions League exposure. And another two reasons why I think Real Madrid would be open for Newcastle United to loan Endrick is because sometimes in life, I always say this about young footballers. They need a nice culture. What did Newcastle United pride themselves on? Togetherness, culture, environment. It's a place where players can come and just be themselves and express themselves. And I think Endrick needs that type of environment for him to flourish, because he's not the finished article. He's still raw around the edges, still rough around the edges. So he needs to go into a place where it's not so demanding, like Real Madrid, where you're in the spotlight, but there is demands and big demands like Newcastle United, but somewhere where he can show his vulnerabilities and not be so heavily scrutinised. But also, Eddie Howe, look back at the time of Eddie Howe at Newcastle United, I would say every single player he's managed has improved, even players that have not entirely been in the starting 11. Think of Jamal Lascelles. During our Champions League campaign, he was excellent, probably the best form of his life. So Eddie Howe could actually be the perfect coach for Endrick, and that's a big selling point of Real Madrid. So if we can say that we can improve him, we can probably give him more individual coaching than what you can offer, because Real Madrid's focus is probably on Kylian Mbappe and all the egos that are involved in their squad. Endrick would get a lot more loving in Newcastle United, and that's the truth. Would be an absolute low risk, high reward, whilst offering more depth to Newcastle United. Our system also suits his style. He's a different type of profile than Nick Waldemurda, but if he's more similar to any of the Newcastle United forwards, it's Yoane Wissa. Just think about it. If Yoane Wissa is going to the AFCON, Endrick can slot in nicely with a similar profile. He suits our counter-attacking style, but also our pressing style. And we can also offer Endrick elite-level minutes in one of the most physically demanding leagues. So if he's going to compete and cope in the Premier League, he can compete and cope in any league. He also fits our post-takeover strategy, acquiring and developing elite young talent. Newcastle's aggressive high-tempo style suits Endrick's explosive acceleration and direct attacking instincts. Moreover, Endrick has had 0 minutes this season. Real Madrid do not want a talent like that with potential like that to be sitting on the bench. The hype he had before he joined Real Madrid was absolutely phenomenal. So they don't want his value to just keep on dropping and dropping and dropping. And loan option could allow him to gather some momentum, build as a player, develop as a player, so they get peak maximum value if, and I say if, they ever do want to sell him. In my opinion, this can only be seen as a win-win for Newcastle United. Let's think about it. If he absolutely smashes it and scores 10 goals from January to the end of the season, he helps us achieve our targets, and that means a permanent move could actually be likely. If it doesn't work out, we shake hands, say thank you very much and walk away. He goes back to Real Madrid. So it's a complete low risk, high reward. And sometimes when a player comes across like this, you need to take that risk. And I remember this quote from him. He said, "I'm a player who shows up at times when it's difficult. I like games like this." And that quote was from a game in 2023, I believe, when Palmeiras played Botafogo. Botafogo were top of the league. Palmeiras needed to win to stand any chance of winning the league. Botafogo were 3-0 up at half time. Guess who scored a brace to spark a comeback in the second half? Endrick. And then he came out. Actually, Palmeiras went on to win the league as well. Endrick came out after that game and said that quote, and I was just like, this is the moment of Endrick. When watching Endrick at youth level, wow, He was unbelievable, like just stylistically, just had everything. Sharp finishes, poacher's instinct, but he was a good dribbler. He was shifty, fast directional change, acceleration, explosive pace. He struggled a little bit since coming into senior football, but that happens with majority of young players. But I think that moment was the moment where everybody stood up and really thought, Endrick, he's got something about him. This is our opportunity to snap. Now, I've said before, he's not the finished article, guys. Like, he is raw around the edges, and I think he's the type of player that plays on emotion. So he needs a nice environment around him. And if he's not feeling love, he's not going to perform at his best. That's a type of characteristic he's got. So let's have a quick look at his statistics. So for Palmeiras under 20s, played 16 games, scored 9 goals. Then for the Palmeiras senior team, he played 82 times, but the majority of those were off the bench. He scored 21 goals and provided 3 assists. So last season for Real Madrid, he scored 7 goals, provided 1 assist in 37 games, but the vast majority of those games were off the bench. And this season, he hasn't played a single minute. Niente, zero, nothing, nilch, not even a second. That's why I think a loan could actually happen. But if I'm Real Madrid, I'm keeping him around, and I can't even lie about it, because what if Gonzalo Garcia gets injured and Mbappe gets suspended? Then they've got a problem. But anyways, let's continue with it, because I want to break him down and provide a scout report. We're going to be looking at his heat map. We're going to be looking at his shot map and a few statistics. But this is what I enjoy about Endrick. He's 19. He stands at 5'8", so he's not very tall at all. But he's primarily a striker, but he's fluid across the front line. He can play on the left. He can play on the right. Personally, looking at his style, I feel he is best suited to a 4-3-3 system. Now, when he came through with Palmeiras, they played a duo striker. So he's also comfortable as a lone striker, but also playing as a duo. So if I ever wanted, for example, to play 4-4-2, he could play alongside Nick Voldemurda. He's a player who thrives in open spaces and suits a transitional style. He actually said this about himself. He said, I run more than anybody else on the pitch, and I never give up. That is actually quite satisfying to hear, because we run a lot. Newcastle United players have to run a lot. Now, in my opinion, these are the 4 things that stand out when you watch him play. Explosive pace, elite bursts of speed, but he's also able to sustain his sprinting ability. He's got that sharpness where he's capable of reacting quicker than defenders and beating them off the mark. Now, I really enjoy his movement. He's consistently seeking space. He likes to play on the last man, which makes him excellent in transition moments and ideal for counter-attacking systems. When it comes to dribbling, I like it, but sometimes he overdoes it. But what I like about it, he's a great short area dribbler, fast directional shifts, and great close control. Now, personally, I love him inside the box. He is clinical inside the box, instinctive movement, and he's capable of confident strikes from tight areas with a low XG. But my 2 favourite things, he strikes early and he needs little to no backlift. And we've seen that when he's done it at Real Madrid. When I look at Endrick, I think he's like a manager's dream, because he's capable of playing on the wing as well as a central striker, or he can even play behind the striker. So that versatility is a key selling point. He possesses poacher's instincts, but the statistics prove that he's far more than just a goal-getter. And his heat map, which we'll touch upon very shortly, shows that he likes to operate between the half spaces, especially in the right channel. He's capable of dropping deep, collecting the ball and progressing it forwards. Now, Endrick is definitely not the finished article, because there is some areas for improvement, and the few that I've picked out is 1, physicality. Will he be able to cope with the demands of the Premier League? One thing I will say about Endrick, I like his size. He's short, he's stocky, he's robust, he is quite physical, he's got some good core strength, but it's more about his height. He only stands at 5'8". Now, you can definitely be small and cope in the Premier League. Look at Bernardo Silva, look at Sergio Aguero. So I'm not trying to say just because you're small you won't be able to make it in the Premier League. I'm just trying to say that is or could be a concern. So that takes us on to my next point. Aerially, he struggles against tall and physical defenders. That moves us on to link-up play. While his link-up play is good, he thrives in short combinations in and around the box, but where he does lack a little bit is his final decision. But again, that's with majority of young players with a lack of experience. But if he could just sharpen his final ball and his spatial awareness, he would definitely contribute to more assists, because he gets himself into good positions. Then I've also got weak foot usage, and this is a funny one, because when it comes to ball striking, or when he's inside the penalty area, he's confident with his right foot. What I mean is, when he's dribbling or in tight spaces, there's a passing lane that's opened up and he'll prefer to shift back onto his left to make the pass. Sometimes that misses the moment of the pass. So when it comes to striking with his right foot, he's confident. When it comes to dribbling or having sequences or passages of play with his right foot, that's where he needs to improve. A couple of things that I haven't wrote down that I do just want to touch upon off the cuff is his defensive work rate. He works hard, he tracks back, he's quick off the mark, he's sharp, he's got a sharp spring and good sprint speed. He's got good physical attributes. Not this why I'm saying I was struggling to put physicality as one of his weaknesses, because he's got good physical attributes. He doesn't mind engaging with defenders and winning the ball back, which is a massive positive. He will press for the team, he'll work hard for the team, and that's exactly what Eddie Howe likes. But another two things that stand out to me, and the kind of work in together, is movement and dribbling, because his penetrating carries are devastating, but he finds time through his movement. So his movement is so good. He's actually got multi-dimensional movement. He's so good at getting in between defenders and running off the last man, similar to Yoane Wissa, but he's also very comfortable dropping into space in between the lines, receiving the ball and then progressing the ball into space. But his movement, this is why he stood out so much in youth level. It's because he understood the game better than most. So he was creating space for himself, which gave him more time in possession, which made his dribbles come off more efficiently. And I mentioned before, he likes to come around into the right half space, and the statistics show that, because if you look at his heat map at the under 20 levels and then senior level at Palmeiras, he likes to come into that right half space. So that's where somebody he would link up well with Anthony Elanga, for example. Now, the beauty about this is Nick Waltermurder and Yoane Wissa like to hover around the other side. So if they did play as a duo together, they wouldn't actually occupy each other's spaces. Now, let's have a look at his XG. And this is XG from his season at Palmeiras. He had 50 shots, scored 11 goals, and he overperformed in his XG, which is really pleasing. Now, Endrick's movement is at a high advanced level for his age, in and outside the box. I love his little sharp instincts where it's like a dash of a 5-yard sprint into space, and that allows him to get in the end of crosses. Do you know whose profile is very similar to? Victor Roque, another teenager from Brazil that went to Barcelona, didn't quite work out. He went back to Palmeiras and he is flying at the moment. Now, as you can see, he's confident taking shots from inside the box and outside the box and from tight areas. So I don't mind it, but I would like him to get more shots off centrally. So that is something that Eddie Howe would have to work on. But considering Endrick's age, I'm going to say it, he's an extremely complete and efficient goal scorer. When you watch him on the eye test, the way he gets shots off, the way he snaps at shots, the way he directs his shots, his precision, his power is excellent for a boy of his age. He's got this trademark finish where it's low drilled with his left foot, and his finishing is usually accurate and powerful regardless of what foot he's shooting from. So let's finish up by looking at a few statistics. And this is time in 2023 when he was in Palmeiras senior team. Look at his non-penalty goals. He's sitting in the top 1% out for non-penalty goals per 90, which is absolutely phenomenal for a kid of his age. And then if you look at assists, this is what I was talking about. His final ball can let him down at times. But if you look at his progressive carries, he's an excellent dribbler. He ranks highly for progressive carries and successful take-ons. So when it comes to Enrick, he's got a well-rounded profile. And his size, considering his size and the way he likes to play, it's a little bit more similar to Yoane Wissa if I was to compare him to anyone in the Premier League right now. Although I would say he's a little bit more efficient in possession than Yoane Wissa. But look, I want to hear your thoughts. Would you welcome a January loan signing for Endrick, especially if Yoane Wissa is going to the AFCON? But once again, guys, if you've enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, support this channel, because I actually you always do, to be fair. But have a nice weekend, and I'll see you tomorrow. One last thing to say, away the lads.